Dutton questions the voice. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I thought we'd have a look at this letter written by Peter Dutton to the Prime Minister, just asking some questions and clarifications about this proposed voice to Parliament, because frankly, there's a lot of unknowns. Now, here's the thing. I suspect there'll be a lot of people, and people have commented this on some of my videos and posts, here in Australia who won't think to this to any great degree and will just go along with the flow. You know, they want to be on the right side of history. Insert your meme here. It's racist to question the voice. All of these things. And they probably have good intentions, although I doubt they analyze or think about anything to any great extent. They're just, going along. But the problem is, we're enshrining this in our Constitution. What if it's a nightmare? What if it's a disaster? And what I'm most concerned of, it makes absolutely no difference and is a complete waste of resources. People already have a voice in Australia. It's the House of Representatives members that we vote for. Now, if Indigenous Australians feel like those representative members aren't doing a correct job, they're just like every other Australian, to be quite honest. Maybe we need to look and challenge those members of the House of Reps as to why their constituents feel like they need this entire other additional infrastructure to purely have their say on the legislation and anything else really that affects them. Because it's their job. It's the House of Reps. They have to represent the people in their electorate. And I've managed to get the data now to see where the majority of Aboriginal Australians and Torres Strait Islanders live and in what electorates. So I'll map that. We'll then have a look at that in a future video. But it's interesting to see who the House of Reps members are. I suspect the problem is, and we've seen this in Parliament, that, those members are just either going along with the party or they're not heard. Here's a scenario. Rather than having a referendum, taking all this time, screwing around with stuff, you find the people that have more than 50%, the House of Reps, like 28 electorates that represent 50% or more of the Indigenous Australians, and you get those members to sit on a committee to have input into any legislation that's affecting Indigenous Australians in the whole country. Maybe you give them extra resources and funding to have people in these communities to feed back to the House of Reps member and provide additional funding for that. Why not? Rather than going through this whole rigmarole. I mean, you could do that in an instant. You wouldn't need a referendum. It could work. And the challenging thing is most of these these electorates are huge. They are huge. They're the size of countries. So it'd be a nightmare to communicate from the people on the street all the way up to Parliament. I suspect perhaps I'm being a bit naive, and it's not actually about hearing and helping the average Australian or the Aboriginal Australian living out in remote parts of Australia. It's about hearing from the people that they want to hear from, their chosen few. So let's have a look at what our opposition leader has to say. I'm getting confused. It's been a long weekend, guys. I'm really tired. It's great, nice, relaxed. And this is from Peter Dutton, MP, Leader of the Opposition. Dear Prime Minister, I write in relation to your proposal to constitutionally enshrine an Indigenous voice, the voice to Parliament, via referendum this year. As you know, I've been constructive and supportive of the government on a number of issues where it is in the national interest to do so. I am committed to being constructive on the issue of reconciliation, and as you are aware from our discussions, the Coalition will support any sensible and practical measures to improve the lives of Indigenous Australians, which I would bet most people would agree to that. Because what's frustrating is you've got all these people that are just getting pretty much screwed over by the government. And so a lot of people are thinking, we need more government or more money or more solutions. Maybe we're going the wrong way. How about we try less government and more freedom? If the referendum is successful, A constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament will be a body without precedent and a significant change in how Australia is governed. Many Australians do not understand the scope and operation of the voice, and I suspect that's done on purpose, and expect comprehensive information before being asked to vote. Regrettably, it now appears clear that your political strategy is to not provide adequate detail for Australians to make an informed decision. He's right on the money. I believe you're making a catastrophic mistake in not providing accessible, clear and complete information regarding your government's version of the voice, condemning it to failure and in turn damaging reconciliation efforts in our country. Your approach will ensure a dangerous and divisive debate grounded in hearsay and misinformation. I've attached a list of issues which many people have raised as not being adequately addressed to date. You've engaged two of our country's smartest political operatives, but their advice to you on rushing the referendum and not providing details to the Australian public is wrong and must surely go against your natural instinct. All voting Australians have a right to make a fully informed decision when considering an issue as significant as changing our Constitution. Australians expect the government to provide the necessary and balanced information to support them in making a decision and to ensure transparency and integrity of the process. In turn, we all have an obligation to respect the outcome. Yeah, this is the thing. If they rush it through without sufficient information, are people going to respect the outcome? It's going to create more division. Your government's position that detail isn't needed before a vote. I mean, that's just nuts. That is just... What would Hawke say? What would Bob Hawke say if he saw Labor resorting to this shit nowadays? And will be contained in subsequent legislation is unreasonable, disrespectful to the Australian public, and undermines the integrity of the process. In refusing to provide basic information and answer reasonable questions on the voice, you are treating the Australian people like mugs. Well, that's probably what he thinks of us. That's, you're just the dumb pleb. You don't need to know. Just shut up and do what we say. Be on the right side of history. Don't question. That's racism. Oh, shit. Are people getting dumber? I think it's the younger generation, honestly. Publicly releasing the details on how the voice will operate will enable Australians to assess whether it would be representative of remote Indigenous people. Yeah, this is the thing. I bet you it's going to be a whole bunch of inner city activists. I bet you, and academics and the chosen elite. And someone like living out at, I looked at an article on ABC, Timber Creek got flooded, a remote Indigenous community in Northern Territory. And they just need to build houses that can survive a 1 in 50 year flood. And I'll do a video on that later. But you don't need a voice to that. You just need smart design. We've designed buildings for Indigenous proposals years ago that would have addressed that. Raise them up off the ground. Then you get space to use under the house, space above. But they're building stuff on slab on ground. Anyway. Whether its structure was effective or just another layer of bureaucracy similar to the failed ATSIC. I mean, yes, this is going to be ATSIC 2. And whether it would interfere with the system of government which has kept our country a stable and peaceful democracy for over a century. Both sides of Parliament seek better opportunities and outcomes for Indigenous Australians. The incident of sexual assault, domestic violence and health outcomes are among many other issues in Indigenous communities, particularly in regional and remote areas, is a national disgrace. Yeah, it's disgusting. It really is. It is imperative you explain how a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament will deliver tangible improvements in the lives of Indigenous Australians, which must remain the priority of government. Given your government has been in office for 7 months and has the ability to pass legislation in both houses of Parliament, legislation for a voice could be enacted when Parliament resumes at the beginning of next month. This would allow you to demonstrate the effectiveness of your preferred voice model in closing the gap. This is the thing. Oh, shit. We've been hearing closing the gap forever, and the gap's not closing. Maybe more government isn't the solution. Just putting it out there, guys. The government must stop playing clever and tricky political games by withholding detail and rushing the referendum. I again call on you to provide Australians with the necessary detail on how the Albanese government's version of the voice will operate. And yours sincerely, Peter Dutton. And if we go down here, here's the attachments, the questions. Australians are none the wiser about the voice. Who, what, who, where, when, and how. They seek detailed information on the following. Who will be eligible to serve on the body? Yeah, that's it. What are the prerequisites for nomination? Will the government clarify the definition of Aboriginality to determine who can serve on the body? I mean, that's a challenging one there. Remember, One Nation calls for genetic testing. And, I mean, Indigenous population has grown significantly beyond their birth rates. How will members be elected, chosen, or appointed? How many people will make up the body? How much will it cost taxpayers annually? What are its functions and powers? Is it purely advisory, or will it have decision-making capabilities? Who will oversee the body and ensure it is accountable? If needed, can the body be dissolved and reconstituted in extraordinary circumstances? How will the government ensure that the body includes those who still need to get a platform in Australian public life? How will it interact with the Closing the Gap process? Will the government rule out using the voice to negotiate any national treaty? Will the government commit to local and regional voices as recommended in the report on the co-design process led by Tom Calmer and Marcia Langton? I mean, this is the thing. It's just if it's just a federal thing, this is probably the best point here. It's just going to be so far removed. It's like ASIC. They wanted to hand it over to the locals. Maybe they just need to give more rights to the local areas. If not, how will it effectively address the real issues that impact people's lives daily on the ground in the community? So there we go, guys. Well, let's have a talk a bit. So there's some real common sense, sensible points there. No one could argue with wanting that detail before we vote. And it's shocking. It is shocking and disgusting that Labor seem to be, well, just getting it through. They just want to, I think they want to win. I think they want to win. They want to feel like they've accomplished something. But it's just going to be another bureaucratic waste of time if we don't know what we're voting for. By default, everyone should be voting no on this until we have the details. Because there's no way you can make an informed decision. And if you don't think that's the right situation to be in, to not vote yet approve changes to our constitution until you have the information to make an informed decision, then you're an NPC. You're not a person anymore. You're a non-playable character that's just an ideologue. I'm sorry if that's what you think, but we need the adults need the information to make an informed decision. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. I know it's a divisive and touchy subject, and you think Albo will step up and tell people the truth. As always, thanks for watching. Check out my other channels, HeiseBim and Heise Does, other content that I create. And if you want to support us, you can financially on YouTube or Patreon, using our referral links, buying our pocket squares, or calling us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great Sunday evening. The weekend's over. I hope you're going to have a good time back at work next week, if that's the end of your holiday, as it is for many in the construction industry. And take care, guys. I think I'm going to go and relax now. See you later.